Nothing. Nothing has happened.
You don't think it's too late?
I don't think anything has happened.
Okay.
Because you're not talking about releases. You have not said that monies have been released to agencies for projects. You have not saying that projects have been identified and are to commence implementation because funding is available. You have just said that a budget has been passed.
So you think this is not an issue?
Well, the budget hasn't been signed, so there's no guarantee that the president is going to sign it.
There's a near guarantee if it has been passed.
Yeah.
There's usually a near guarantee that the president will assent
Well,
to it.
remember,
I'm not trying to preempt.
No, remember that the last one also took like 2 months before the president ascended to it. And in fact, nobody even saw him ascend to it. So what I'm trying to say is that first and foremost, let's define what a budget. A budget is a financial plan that you have cast in figures. Okay, so what should worry you now is what's supporting your budget, because budget is all about your inflows, your income, okay, that now begins to drive your expenditure. If you budgeted all the whole money in the whole world and you are not able to now get that income stream.
Are you telling me that timeliness is not an issue?
I am trying to say to you that timeliness is an issue when you are driven by projects and programs and timelines. Okay, remember that our budgets don't run a 1-year cycle. Now most of the times they extend it to March of the next year or something. So what it is that should worry you is what component of a budget is actually going to now improve on your infrastructure, on your human capital. Yes.
We're going to get to
yes.
that. You understand? Because I feel, to me, timeliness is an issue. Whether I don't know, you may not agree with me. You just raised another issue now. That
the law says that your budget is supposed to be an annual budget. Okay, and if you're going to be running an annual cycle, an annual budget should run from January to December. Okay. However, there are also demands to this, annual cycles. You just don't wake up and you start spending money. I think that the first thing we need to do is to look at our budgeting process. And until you're able to address the challenges of your budgeting process, it wouldn't matter if you signed it in November or in December. What should matter to you is not that you're not doing annual budgets, but that you're doing what you can call, annual or integrated plans. The moment you don't have, because there is no project that runs a 1 year, there's no capital project that runs a 1-year cycle. Very few do. Okay, so until you're able to understand that, my pessimism is, if they pass it, yes, if they don't pass it, no. What does it change?
Okay, you said we need to look at our budgeting process. That is the issue.
Yes.
What specific areas do you think should be looked at as regards to budgeting process?
First and foremost, how do you allocate these funds? The envelope system, what does it do? Who determines what envelopes are going to be? Who determines the ceilings? Okay, are there any pre-audits? Are there any oversights? Are there any? Because remember, the budget has a very long process. I think about 14. Taking it from from your midterm expenditure revenue to your fiscal strategy to all sorts, to even getting the civil society organizations, governors forum, entirely involved in that process. So the critical factor in a budget, like I said to you, is first and foremost, what are you going to be allocating these finances or funds or programs to? And if that's not well spelled out, for crying out loud, we could just be dancing around there. A bonfire.
Okay, now that the National Assembly has done its part,
implementation of budget is not going to be determined by when the executive assents. It's going to be determined by availability of funds. So it's not all about the executive signing and then you can start spending. There's no 4.6 trillion sitting anywhere. Okay, these monies are supposed to be coming in from income streams that are here and there. What have you been able to do to ensure those income streams? That should be our worry here.
Wait, I wish that you have your fears as regards our revenue. Is that
Okay, let me put it this way.
Okay.
Have we been able to fund any budget successfully in this country in the past 10 years? Has there been any budget that didn't run into deficits? Even when we didn't have the insurgency challenges here and there. And you are now basing this, budget against 2.3 billion barrels of oil. What happens if there's a shutdown? So it's important that when you're looking at this budget, I mean, if we had a budget that was saying, okay, fine, we are now going to be looking at truly now using whatever income that we get from this diversification program that we've embarked on to be able to now try to build a new economy, then all of us are talking. Everything you have juxtaposed your budget against is something that's at very high and volatile risk. Okay, the price of the oil, I think they're using $77 or something as a benchmark.
$77.
Okay, whatever it is you're doing, these are all subject to market forces that you have little or no control about. The production process, okay, or volume is also not in your control. I mean, MPDC, which is supposed to be something, I think will have some, and even at that, the MPDC does not even have total control. We don't even have the total control of the process of MPDC. They have still also now sourced a lot of, their content.
Last month's FAC meeting, it remitted some money into the revenue.
That's what I'm saying. If you remitted some money, how much did it remit? So if you're looking at MPDC being a big player, and you can be able to say, okay, even if other oil majors are threatening us with XYZ, pull out, our own local oil company should be able to, do at least $1 billion or $2 billion or $1.5 billion. And then you can start talking about this import substitute model that everybody is singing about. You must be able to look at your local capacity to ensure your income stream before you can start making all this is going to do this and is going to do that and is going to do this and is going to do the other one.
Okay, now this issue of budget implementation, there are some arguments that have been raised. You have talked about the revenue challenge.
First and foremost, I tell you this, when you have a development plan, it's usually 5-year development programs. So it allows you all the time to do this, your planning and executing and oversighting and all that. But the moment you're able to now reduce these things to, there's no concessioning program that takes anything less than 2-3 years, no matter how fast you want to be. Okay, because of the demands of infrastructure concessionary. So you cannot take that away. Secondly, if you're talking about the BPP, if we had, a 5-year program that had identified what and what should have been captured, which year it should have been captured, how come in maybe by this year we've not been able to now clear whatever projects we knew was going to enter into the budget in the next maybe 18-16 months if we had a proper integrated program? So the implementation of our budget, people should know that this budget that is coming out now is not, probably won't be the same budget that was even put into the House and put in the National Assembly by the executive. What the executive does is that they bring budget proposals. What the National Assembly does is that they're actually the ones that now prepare this budget and then pass it for assent of the executive. It's important people know that. So by the time they bring out this budget and then it's not what the executive, had put in there in the first place, you now first have having this logjam. And then people now say, sign. And you sign something you can't implement. So signing the budget or passing the budget is not Eureka. It's not El Dorado. What El Dorado is making certain that we have a budgeting process that captures all the challenges, so that the moment that budget goes into the National Assembly, it's all about, okay, people, okay, we have agreed on this, we've done this, we saw this, everybody said this, and then people now begin to now develop what you can call a proper budget implementation framework that is result-oriented and demand-driven.
Okay, now coming back to the issue of revenue.
Call fiscal federalism, or what you call true federalism. Okay? Now, true federalism or fiscal federalism is where you allow the federating units to be able to control their resources and then pay taxes to the center. What you have in this country, all the resources that are in the states are under the purview and control, total and complete control of the federal government. Even if you found gold.
Lagos State, for example,
yes,
has been able to raise internal revenue. Now, I remember the former governor of Lagos State. I remember I had an issue at some point with the Rebasing administration, and it wasn't getting this FAC revenue. Yes. And somehow Lagos State was.
All Lagos State did was to start taxing people. It wasn't somehow. There was no magic to Lagos State raising money. But you can be able to do that in Lagos because somehow too, if you live in Lagos, somehow money enters into your pocket. So all the Lagos man needed to do was first and foremost begin by doing housing. The moment he did that is a housing enumeration project. He started taxing people based on their houses. And the moment they passed that rate edit, Lagos was able to raise more than he was able to ever need. So it's all about putting into perspective a proper tax system. However, also know that tax must come as a result of income. What they call the pay as you earn. Until you're able to now develop a structure that will allow the states to first and foremost look at their natural resources and have access to those natural resources and be able to now improve on these natural resources, you might not be having states that are economically viable. Because remember that a lot of these states were also created for political considerations. the whole idea was create them so that more revenue stream coming from the government can go into there. And a lot of them were not even created using democratic processes. Out of the 36 states of Nigeria that we have, I bet that less than 10 or 12% of it, was created using any democratic process. I mean, a military man comes in and announces 12 states, the other one comes and announces 24, the other one comes and announces 36, and on it goes. So the boundaries that can be able to now make these states independent, the parameters, the variables, the factors are not taken into any consideration. So it's important and it's very, very germane that we understand that first and foremost, the budgeting process has to do with also our system of governance, our political system, what governs it, our economic system, what drives it. You have an economic system that is totally and completely import dependent. Okay? And now how are you going to survive? When states like Yobe, what are they importing? What can they sell? States like even Sokoto Kebbi, what can they sell?
Okay, so basically what you're saying is for every year
impasse, I mean, how does it affect me and you? How has it reduced the local debt? Okay, how has it increased the power access? It doesn't matter. It doesn't mean anything until you're able to tie it, to tangibles.
Okay, now moving on to the issue of the dollar. I asked you that question. I'm going to ask you the issue of dollarization of the economy.
Is to increase the value of your naira. There was one time this almighty dollar was exchanging for 17 naira. There was one time we were spending naira in the shops of London, and I'm talking about the high streets of London. Okay, it's all about production. It's what gives value to your currency. Right now, what that simply means is that you don't have any currency of value. Okay, because if you're going to step out of Nigeria, you must need to take, a currency that is tradable. Your naira is not tradable, but naira can become very, very tradable. Okay, the moment you are able to put into perspective a proper production program that can now begin to now add value to it. Because in that case now, you don't need to now change, naira into dollar to buy goods. You need to now change dollar into naira to buy goods, and it's as simple. It's as simple as that.
Okay. Now I talked about that.
Very simple. True federalism.
Okay.
True federalism. You see, I think the greatest challenge is that you have, and it was the military that created this problem for us, where you now had a military system that put in a command and control structure that made the center very heavily resource laden. Okay? And we now christened it national cake. And the moment you use the word cake, is something that's sweet. Everybody now came with their knife and started carving. And then when I bring in, let me even give you something that's very elementary. You don't need to be an economist to know that GDP means gross domestic product. So when somebody says it's rebased and all of a sudden your economy is producing $510 billion, that's what it means. Okay, and then he's now calculating this thing to mean that the least person in Nigeria against that figure might be now earning 2,000. Okay, this is the same country that another report now says that over 100 million people are living under less than $1 a day. This is a country that another report says that less than 25 million people are banked. Okay, so you don't need to be a rocket scientist to know that something is wrong here. You just don't need to. So what it is you need to do is first and foremost, it was like when they started this investment thing and the bank started declaring trillion percentage on profit. And I asked a friend of mine, what are they producing? What are they producing to be making this, 1 trillion? Every bank in Nigeria became a wonder bank. Nobody saw the Ponzi until it became too late. So what it is you need to do is say, first and foremost, we need to begin to get a little bit dispassionate about our country. Even the Lagos state that is doing dispassionate in our thinking things through. A lot of people are very political when it comes to the issue of economy and economics in this country. Even Lagos state, if they're not very careful, they're going to run into a lot of trouble because all the monies that they're borrowing and bringing into the system has to be paid back sometime. And if you're not also building the structure that can now bring in production into your mix, then something is going to have to give some time. We're putting so much money into infrastructure that we can ill afford to maintain. We don't even have the technology, we don't even have the capacity, we can't even produce the space. I mean, even to maintain a simple 3, 4, 5-story building, a lift, for instance. You go to a place, they're launching it, the lift is flying like as if, it's a rocket. Come there 2 years after, you're getting stuck in the thing, and then people are fiddling to be able to get you out of it. You don't even have a company that can be able to make the sprockets or the chains or whatever that can be able to make those lifts function. Why? Because your steel industry is dead. And your steel industry is dead because you've not been able to understand that until you're able to get the steel industry running, you can never get your infrastructure right. The word is never. And you have a solid mineral sector, no